The truth about casinos and the psychological stages of gamblers. People say that gambling should only be seen as a form of entertainment, and that you should never play excessively. Because if you play too much, you won't be able to win. You can't beat the casino because we take a percentage of the profits from every game. Think about it simply, what type of game has the lowest percentage taken? In reality, even Baccarat charges you around 2.5% per round. If you play 40 rounds without winning or losing, just breaking even, you still lose money. The bigger the bets, the bigger the losses. As for me, I wouldn't be foolish enough to waste my money on gambling. What you just heard comes from Stanley Ho, the king of Macau's casinos. He was a businessman, billionaire, and the founder and chairman of SJM Holdings, a company that owns 19 casinos in Macau. Greetings from Wealth Tactics. Do you want to know just how incredible Stanley Ho's skills were to earn him the title of King of Casinos? The answer to that question lies in his own motto. If you don't gamble, you win. When it came to gambling, Stanley Ho believed that not playing meant not losing. Not only did he refuse to gamble himself, but he also forbade his family from participating in gambling. He understood the rules: out of 10 times, you lose 9. In a televised interview, he openly stated, "I always give people honest advice. Gambling should only be seen as entertainment, and you shouldn't play too much. Because if you keep playing, there's no guarantee you'll win. But the house always takes its commission. I've warned people, but they don't listen. Even if you play 40 rounds and break even, you still lose money." He also admitted that no matter how rich you are, you can't beat the casino. There's an industry secret that few people know. Casinos don't fear players winning. They fear players not showing up. The casino knows that if players keep playing, they will eventually lose everything. So why do people keep playing? Is it because they've lost their minds? Have they been drugged? Or is it gambling addiction? The urge to gamble is a natural human weakness, especially among Eastern cultures. Gambling is one of the 3 worst vices. Between gambling, prostitution, and drugs, gambling is the most destructive to families. Even though drug addiction is terrible, for billionaires, no matter how much they use, with today's drug prices, it's unlikely to completely drain their wealth. Once caught in the vicious cycle of gambling, no matter how many millions or billions of dollars they have, they can still end up penniless due to debt. Keep in mind that whether it's online or in-person gambling, the destructive power remains the same. Some people, after losing all their money, walk away, which means they still have some level of self-discipline. However, many lose and then withdraw more money to keep playing. Some even borrow money just to continue gambling, which is not uncommon. Why does this happen? I have some real-life gambling stories to share that might make people reflect. The first case, perhaps no one has suffered from gambling as much as Leon Lai. He completely lost everyone's trust. He never imagined he would end up in such a situation. In 2011, Leon Lai got into sports betting. The first time, he bet 10 million VND on a match and unexpectedly won 80 million. The scariest thing about gamblers is their lack of awareness of value and their disregard for the importance of hard work. In less than 3 months, Leon Lai won over 1 billion VND, while his initial investment was only around 200 million. Even if he worked tirelessly for a whole year, he would struggle to save more than 100 million. Yet in such a short time, he had made an enormous amount of money. Leon Lai decided to quit his stable job at a major construction company to focus solely on sports betting. And that was the beginning of his financial downfall. Every plan, every risk management strategy was thrown out the window once he started losing. At that point, all he wanted was to win back his money as quickly as possible. But that was just the tragic illusion of a gambling addict. In the end, less than 3 months after winning over 1 billion, Leon Lai was completely broke. At this point, he lost all interest in everything, even looking for a job. Despite receiving multiple job offers from different companies, he refused to work. Even as paying for food, electricity, and daily expenses became increasingly difficult, he still didn't change. The most terrifying part was that Leon Lai had completely rejected the value of honest labor. He had lost over 3 billion VND, with more than $2 billion borrowed from his parents and the bank. The massive debt, along with his desperate desire to win back his losses, drove him into madness and self-destruction. Before losing his sanity completely, he started borrowing from loan sharks, taking money at an outrageous 3% monthly interest rate. In less than 6 months, Leon Lai had lost everything. By this point, even his credit cards could no longer cover his financial hole. His bank loans had been overdue for more than 6 months, and legal action was being prepared against him. At this stage, Leon Lai had to pay over $200 million per month, with interest alone exceeding $70 million. If, at that moment, he had confided in his family, sought help from friends to pay off his debts, and quit gambling, he might have had a chance to rebuild his life. But he didn't. Instead, he secretly sold his family home, which was 130 square meters. After paying off his debts, he had only $200 million left. He then hid away in a hotel for about a month, turned off all communication devices, and continued gambling. In his mind, he believed he had to win back at least $2 billion so he could buy a small house and start over. A month later, he was left with only $100 million. At this point, he planned to end his life, feeling he could no longer face his parents. He wrote a letter and transferred the remaining $100 million to his mother. Trembling with fear, he climbed to the top floor of the hotel, preparing to face his fate. Leon Lai despised himself. He had been fearless while gambling, but now he was afraid to log out of life. On the night he decided to drown his fear in alcohol for courage, his parents found out where he was staying through his hotel booking information. When he returned home, Leon Lai lay in bed for 2 months, doing nothing. His family didn't blame him much. About a year after the tragedy passed, real estate prices had increased by more than $3 billion. Leon Lai's parents, who had worked hard their whole lives to save up and buy a house for him, now had to bear the heavy consequences because of their son. In just 2 to 3 short years, a once well-off family had fallen into hardship. After 6 months of depression, Leon Lai finally decided to quit gambling and rebuild his life. But years of failing to recognize the value of hard work made it difficult for him to start anew. He lived with his parents in their hometown for 6 months, working a job that paid less than 10 million VND per month. The drastic difference from his previous lifestyle, combined with peer pressure, made Leon Lai feel like ending his life was still the better option. He felt like a complete failure. At the time, he was 30 years old, homeless, with nothing but an old motorcycle, completely broke. Because of gambling, his marriage of 14 years eventually fell apart. He neglected his job, spending his days gambling and contemplating suicide. But one day, his father walked into his room and said, "My son, go back to the city and start over. Find a small job, and over time, things will get better. Your mother and I will support you no matter what. Stop thinking about the past. We've talked it over, and we'll use our pension and the rental income we've saved over the years to help you buy a small 70-square-meter apartment." In the end, Leon Lai decided to quit gambling and turn his life around. He knew that as long as he had money in his hands, he wouldn't be able to control himself, and would fall back into gambling. So every month, as soon as he received his salary, he sent the money to his mother for safekeeping and only kept 300,000 VND per day for food and daily expenses. He also cancelled all his credit cards. As of now, Leon Lai has been free from gambling for 14 months. Though his savings are only enough to watch a football match at a street cafe or rent a tiny room the size of a bathroom in this big city, he can finally talk to his parents with peace of mind, buy them small gifts, and confidently look in the mirror without shame. He hopes that, for the rest of his life, he can make up for all the mistakes he has made. Before we dive deeper, don't forget to follow the channel for more insights about money and tips to help you achieve financial freedom faster. The second case is about my older brother. He migrated to Macau and worked in casinos for many years, so he has enough knowledge to answer this question. Why do so many people, even though they know gambling can ruin their families and their lives, still fall into its trap? It's human nature. People always carry greed within them. Workers always want to earn more money. Lovers always want more affection from their partners. Those who strive for improvement always seek higher levels of perfection. Even those who are content with a simple life still wish for a life without failures. So in reality, everyone has greed. My brother has met many gamblers. They own assets that ordinary people wouldn't even dare to dream of. A single night of gambling losses for them could be equivalent to a lifetime of savings for an average person. Some business owners would rather take their money to the casino than pay their employees, whose salaries have been delayed for months. The real customers of casinos are not small-time gamblers, but those at the top of the food chain, people who hold the fate of ordinary workers in their hands. My brother once shared a few examples of his clients to help you understand the nature of gamblers more deeply. First, the thrill-seeking gambler. One case my brother encountered was a young heir, only 30 years old. Every month, he would visit Macau once, bringing along about 5 to 10 billion VND. At first, he would place bets of 1 to 1.5 billion VND per round. If he won, he'd continue betting the same amount. If he was on a winning streak, he would immediately bet 3 billion. If he was down to just a few billion left, he wouldn't hesitate to go all in. From start to finish, his gambling sessions usually lasted no more than 20 minutes. He would either walk away with 10 to 15 billion or lose everything. For him, gambling was purely about the thrill. He didn't care about how much money he won. What excited him was the rush, the fast heartbeat, the adrenaline, and the overwhelming euphoria of finally hitting his goal. That moment of victory made him feel like the universe was on his side, like he was favored by fate. How many times in life do people get to experience that feeling? Simply put, the future is unpredictable. But when someone wins by luck, they feel as if they are controlling the future. Everything seems to go their way. However, casinos are never afraid of gamblers like him. Because no matter how many times he wins, it only takes one big loss to wipe out both his capital and his profits. People like him never accept defeat. In business, he may be highly successful. But in a casino, he will ultimately be just another loser. Second, the dependent gambler. This story is about a businessman from a rural area. He was around 50 years old. Every time he visited, he would bring about 7 billion VND. Each time he played, he only placed bets of a few dozen million. If he won, he would use his winnings to continue betting. His strategy was very steady, no rush, no recklessness. Each session, he could win anywhere from 1 to 3 billion. For a while, he won continuously for an entire month. Sometimes he'd win a few 100 million. Other times he'd win 3 billion. He almost never lost. However, if his original capital dropped by more than 200 million, he would turn into a completely different person. He would become extremely anxious and impulsive, placing bets of hundreds of millions per round. When the initial amount was recovered, he would go back to placing small bets. One time, after losing several rounds in a row, my brother saw him lose control for the first time. He started betting billions, but he kept losing, and eventually, he placed everything he had left. In the end, he lost it all. After that, he mortgaged his personal assets to keep gambling. Within just a week, he had lost over 70 billion. He once said that as long as you're not too greedy, you can win big at Macau's casinos. But thinking about it, his company only made about 10 to 15 billion in profit per year. Yet, with just 1 week of gambling in Macau, he could win an amount equivalent to an entire year's worth of work. The scary thing about gambling is that it can make you feel like all your past efforts are worthless. Falling into this illusion, you lose the motivation to make money through honest work. At the same time, it makes you want to escape from life. In this world, even the most professional gamblers cannot make a sustainable profit from gambling. If you want to get rich from it, the only way is to own a casino. This is the story of two men, whom I'll call Mr. C and Mr. D. They were both high rollers. Each of them had personal assets worth hundreds of millions of dollars, yet it's hard to believe that they spend more than 20 days a month gambling in Macau. To stay long-term, they even went as far as switching their passports to the Philippines. Mr. C frequently played at MGM. He could sit in front of a slot machine for 12 hours straight without getting bored, even eating at the machine. Meanwhile, Mr. D loved baccarat and spent most of his time at the gambling tables. To him, winning wasn't particularly exciting, and losing didn't bother him much either. One time, Mr. C told Mr. D that slot machines were a bottomless pit. No matter how much money you put in, it was never enough. Mr. D asked, "If you know that, why do you still play?" C replied, "Because apart from this, nothing else interests me." Even my brother couldn't understand it. They had so much money, they could do anything, so why throw it away at the casino? But later I understood. We are often misled by famous, successful people into thinking that all wealthy individuals are like Steve Jobs, Jack Ma, or Warren Buffett. But in reality, some people, when they have too much money, don't know what to do with it. They already own all the luxuries, have enjoyed every privilege life has to offer, and are content with the wealth they've accumulated. When it comes to charity, they think, "This is my money, I earned it, why should I donate it?" So, what else can they do? Gamble. After all, they're not short on money. But behind the facade of recklessness at the gambling table lies an empty soul. In the end, Mr. C ended up in debt by tens of billions, and Mr. D remained addicted to gambling. Everything I've described so far reflects human nature when it comes to gambling. Next, I'll talk about the external factors that influence this behavior. Anyone who has been to Macau knows that casinos offer many enticing perks to make you keep coming back. You sign up for a membership card and gamble to accumulate points. Then, you can exchange those points for phones, hotel rooms, and more. In VIP rooms, there are always hosts who personally escort high rollers into the casino. If you come to play, they will take care of everything: your hotel, transportation, and even meals. And if you're a high roller, they'll gladly send a helicopter to pick you up. Sometimes, they even help you shop. They're more attentive than a personal assistant. Many tourists might not know that most VIP rooms are actually run by gambling brokers. Once they trust your potential, they'll be more than willing to lend you money straight from the casino. If you win, you can cash out immediately. If you lose, they'll give you time to pay it back. This has become a highly developed business model. If you feel the betting limits at your table are too low and want to raise the stakes, you can join higher stakes games like Drag 2 or Drag 3. In fact, bets can even go up to tens of millions of dollars. If you love gambling but don't want to travel to Macau, no problem. There are phone betting services available. All you need to do is install a Baccarat app, and they will update you on the results of each round. Just tell them how much you want to bet, and they'll place the bet for you. Now, you might be wondering why so many people are obsessed with Baccarat. Is it because it's fair? Wrong. It's because it follows a pattern. This pattern is the most sophisticated form of deception in the world, making every Baccarat player believe they can predict the game's outcome. Aside from casinos, what else is Macau famous for? High-end fashion boutiques, luxury jewelry stores, and nightclubs. Macau's nightclubs are filled with the most beautiful women, featuring an allied force of beauties from all over the world. It's easy to get swept up in the extravagant and glamorous atmosphere. Every store tempts you to open your wallet and spend. The surrounding casinos are like friendly ticking time bomb ATMs, luring you in. One thing worth mentioning: you might be surprised to find that most restaurants near the casinos don't serve Portuguese or Hong Kong cuisine. Instead, they mainly feature restaurants from different regions of mainland China, northeastern, Sichuan, Hunan, Shanghai, and more. These familiar flavors are carefully curated to cater to Chinese guests. And perhaps the biggest difference between Macau and Hong Kong is that while Hong Kongers tend to be a bit arrogant toward mainland Chinese visitors, people in Macau are the complete opposite. When they meet visitors from the mainland, they are more than willing to bow and show the utmost respect. Deep down, they may not actually hold mainlanders in high regard, but in the end, money is king. To be honest, I've never really liked Macau. This is a city that embodies one clear principle: money comes first. Even though Macau may seem more extravagant when compared to Shanghai, it is ultimately a place that reflects the extreme pragmatism of humanity. Although my brother once worked in the gambling industry, I sincerely urge you all to stay away from it. Gambling is a toxic addiction that can lead you to ruin before you even realize it. Why do people only leave when they've lost everything, or even borrow money to keep playing? Because of one simple belief. As long as you're breathing, you can win it back. Most gamblers refuse to admit they are losers. Most people don't truly understand the nature of gambling addiction. We don't realize how our loved ones and close friends gradually transform into greedy, frightening, and desperate versions of themselves. A true gambling addict is not born that way. They were once ordinary people, just like the rest of us. But one fateful moment, a tiny bit of greed, and they slowly get dragged into the abyss of gambling. Someone once described how an underground casino operated in a certain place. In reality, it wasn't a casino at all, it was a fraud syndicate disguised as one. Everyone there had a specific role to play, and the players didn't lose because of gambling itself, they lost because they were scammed. So, does that mean you'll be safe from financial ruin if you gamble in a legal casino like those in Macau? Absolutely not. Gambling will always lead to the same outcome: financial ruin and destroyed lives. Instead of saying, "You lose 9 out of 10 times," the truth is, you lose 10 out of 10 times. Casinos in Las Vegas and Macau operate differently from underground gambling dens. They don't need to spend much time or effort deceiving players because they follow the big tree principle. This will be explained later. The main issue here is that many people don't truly understand gambling or the mindset of gambling addicts. That's why they struggle to help their loved ones or friends escape. Even those who lead anti-gambling initiatives often fail to make a real difference, because they don't truly understand. Every gambling addict knows deep down that gambling isn't just a game of chance, it's the most elaborate scam in the world. Is it enough to simply find a legal and fair casino to gamble? No. Let's take a look at how an ordinary person, someone familiar and dear to you, can turn into a frightening gambling addict. This process can be divided into 4 stages. The first stage, caution. The second stage, downfall. The third stage, compensation. The fourth stage, complete loss. In the first stage, when someone first enters a casino, they are usually very cautious. Initially, they only place small bets, mainly for entertainment. If they win a few million, they tell themselves they'll stop. At this point, most people can still control themselves. But the moment they get lucky and win 100 million, they start to fantasize that every time they walk into a casino, they can win 100 million and leave. Macau isn't just about gambling, there are many other entertainment options. But that's beside the point. Back to the main issue, gradually, you fall into the cycle of chasing that 100 million in every game. During this process, there will be times when luck is on your side, and you sit at the table, win 100 million, and walk away. It seems so easy. But then, there are times when you only win 50 to 80 million, which isn't enough to satisfy your goal. So you keep playing. Then you start losing. Since you've won before, you refuse to stop and are determined to keep playing to recover your losses. Eventually, you win again. Now you've accumulated more gambling experience. Even if you've lost 200 million, you'll still try to win it back. If you win just 100 million, you won't leave. You continue playing, losing, and trying to recover. Throughout this process, 2 significant changes happen. First, the amount you bet increases because when you've lost 200 million and want to make it back, you have no choice but to raise your stakes. Second, you gain more experience in losing 100 million, 200 million, or even 300 million and then making a comeback. But remember, all this experience is only building up to the moment when it completely destroys you. At this point, you might still not fully grasp how dangerous these experiences are. Let's take an example. A man was gambling in Macau. At one point, he was down to his last 10 million. Frustrated and desperate, he decided to go all in on a pair bet in baccarat, thinking he might as well take the risk. A pair bet predicts that the banker's or player's 2 cards will be a pair, with a payout ratio of 11 to 1. Of course, anyone familiar with probability knows that the actual chance of winning is around 1 in 13. But miraculously, he won that bet and turned things around. After that, Whenever he was down to his last chips, he would always bet on a pair. However, he never won that bet again. Later, he did the math and realized that the amount he had wagered on pairs had accumulated to over 100 million, far more than what he had ever won. In the end, he lost everything. If he hadn't won that first time, he wouldn't have continued betting this way. This is the danger of accumulating experiences for a gambling addict. In the second stage, every gambler will experience disappointment after their first big game at the casino. That day, he lost 300 million. At that moment, memories of his past experiences resurfaced. Last time, I lost 300 million but managed to win it back, so there's nothing to worry about. I just need to wait for luck to be on my side again. In Baccarat, every outcome can be predicted, and luck is simply a programmed pattern, like betting on a pair, which gives gamblers a chance to turn the game around. But this time, he seemed unable to win at all. The more he played, the more he lost, even running out of his initial funds. This was the first time he felt himself slipping into a downward spiral in his gambling career. And this loss marked an important turning point, turning him into a true gambler. This explains why people often don't leave the casino until they've lost everything. People don't want to accept defeat. They always believe they'll win again. That belief alone isn't enough to keep them playing. But the experience of winning 3 billion or recovering 1 billion makes it impossible for them to walk away. Even when they're down to their last penny, they'll place a bet because it's their last hope of winning everything back. In the third stage, they begin to compensate. What does compensation mean here? It means that when everything collapses like the sky falling down, you have to find a way to fix the damage you've done. After suffering major losses, gamblers will do everything they can to fill the financial hole they've created. Humans are greedy by nature. When money comes into their pocket, they hate the idea of having to give it back. In Macau, there's a story about a man who turned 1 billion into 30 billion. The very next day, he went back to gambling and lost all 31 billion. In the end, he jumped from a building because he felt like he had lost everything. Now, do you understand? After experiencing such a massive downfall, a gambler thinks only about recovering their losses. They always tell themselves, "Once I win back what I lost last time, I'll never gamble again." But gamblers have sworn this to themselves countless times, only to keep losing even more. For example, when someone loses 20 billion, a rational gambler will realize they can't recover it all in one game. So, they start planning their compensation. If they can't win it all back at once, they'll break it into 10 rounds. Winning 2 billion per round should be enough. And just like that, they get sucked back into the endless cycle of gambling. This story clearly illustrates the dependency mindset of gamblers and the severe dangers of gambling. Gambling doesn't just strip people of their rationality. It drags them into an abyss with no escape, destroying families and eroding society. Therefore, banning gambling is a way to protect people from falling into this trap, helping them maintain a clear and healthy life. Hopefully, through these real-life stories, more people will recognize the dangers of gambling and stay away from it. Gambling is not just a simple form of entertainment, it is a bottomless trap. The story of Stanley Ho and the experiences of Leon Lai clearly illustrate the devastating consequences of gambling on individuals, families, and society. As Stanley Ho once said, "You don't gamble, you win." This is a valuable lesson learned from years of experience. Those who are deeply involved in gambling often have a false sense of luck. They believe they can win and recover what they have lost. But in reality, the deeper they go, the harder it is to escape. Banning gambling is not just about maintaining social order, it is also about protecting the happiness and peace of every family. I hope that you and I can always stay clear-headed, keep our distance from gambling, and cherish the happy life we have.